All right. Thank you all for joining us today to learn more about applying to become an affiliate of Bee City USA. So I'm going to begin by giving a quick overview of the Bee Campus USA program, the commitments affiliates make, and the steps involved in applying. I'll then hand it over to the committee chairs who have been kind enough to join us today, and they'll share their experience navigating the application process and becoming affiliates of Bee Campus USA. And then, as I said, we'll have time at the end for presenters to answer any of your questions. So Bee Campus USA and its sister initiative, Bee City USA, are initiatives of the Xerces Society. And many of you are likely familiar with Xerces, but for those who aren't, Xerces is a nonprofit that's focused on conserving invertebrates and their habitat. We use hands-on conservation, advocacy, education, and applied research to protect the life that sustains us. Bee Campus USA brings campus communities together to sustain pollinators, and in particular, the more than 3,600 species of native bees in this country, by increasing the abundance of native plants, providing nest sites, and reducing the use of pesticides. While we call the main initiative Bee City, there are two sister initiatives within it, Bee City and Bee Campus. Cities, towns, villages, and counties can apply to Bee City USA, and college and university campuses can apply to Bee Campus USA. And at this point, we don't have a program for other types of schools like elementary, middle, or high schools, or for businesses. But Xerces has some other opportunities to become involved in pollinator conservation. So feel free to check out their website if you're part of one of those groups and interested in becoming more involved in pollinator conservation. Since its founding in 2012, Bee City and Bee Campus have grown substantially. There are currently over 100 Bee City affiliates and over 100 Bee Campus affiliates, so a total of over 200 affiliates in 42 states. And on this map, the green dots are cities, the blue dots are campuses. And we have an interactive version of this map on our website. So if you visit bcityusa.org, you can click on the dots and learn more about when different affiliates were certified and which is which of these dots. Affiliates of Bee Campus USA make a variety of commitments to protect pollinators. They create and enhance pollinator habitat on campus through increasing the abundance of native plants and reducing the use of pesticides. They offer service learning projects to enhance pollinator habitat. They offer courses or continuing education opportunities that incorporate pollinator conservation. They display signage about pollinator conservation, annually apply for renewal and report on the previous year's activities. And then finally, they pay a small initial application fee and annual renewal fees. In order to apply, campuses must form a committee, complete an online application, receive approval of the president or chancellor, and then pay an application fee. And applicants don't need to have already achieved all of the commitments before applying. Applying is essentially a pledge saying that in the first year or two, you will complete all of these commitments. So this was just a very quick overview of the program. If you'd like to learn more, we had a recent webinar that was an introduction to Bee City and Bee Campus. So if you go to the Xerces Society YouTube channel, there's a recorded copy of that there that you can watch to learn more. And you can also visit our website at bcityusa.org. So with that, I'm excited to hand it over to our first speaker, who is Nick Dorian from Tufts University. And Nick is a PhD student at Tufts studying the population ecology of wild bees. And he also co-founded the Tufts Pollinator initiative and chairs the Tufts University Bee Campus Committee. So with that, I will hand it over to Nick.
Great, thank you so much. I am very excited to be here and share our experience with getting Tufts University, which is an urban campus, recognized by the Xerces Society and as a bee campus. So if you don't know, Tufts University is located just north of Boston in sort of on the border between urban Medford and Somerville, Massachusetts. And Somerville is the densest city in the United States. There are very few green spaces and all of the land is occupied by residents. And so how do pollinators live in cities like this compared to campuses that are maybe more green or have large tracts of agricultural land from the state? And to give you a sense of where our campus is located, this is sort of the surrounding landscape. We have kind of buildings and some parks, but a lot of houses and a lot of different people, living around. To me, though, I look at this area and I see an inimitable opportunity for pollinator conservation. One, bees are actually quite diverse in city habitats because of the diversity of plants that are grown for bees and flowers. And also, there's lots of people that can be mobilized to do pollinator conservation, right? Everyone is interested and there's a force to plant flowers in their gardens or grow flowers in community gardens. And so seeing this opportunity and seeing how there's actually very few people doing pollinator conservation in the New England area, I founded with some other biology graduate students the Tufts Pollinator Initiative. Now, this is a group of scientists. We all study pollinators in some way, whether we're graduate students or undergraduates helping grad students or faculty advising graduate students. And we all study pollinators, so honeybees, wild bees, butterflies, wasps. And we wanted to basically take our interest in studying pollinators and conserving them and combine that with our interest in educating, because we all also have to be teaching assistants and we all have to have, we're all interested in educating the public. And so we founded the Tufts Pollinator Initiative, which is sort of at this nexus of education and ecology. And we founded this a year before we applied to Bee Campus. Now, I know it was said that you don't have to have any kind of accomplishments before you apply for Bee Campus. It's really just a pledge. But in our case, we were doing all the work that Bee Campus required. And we thought it was kind of a simple extension to then apply to become a Bee Campus. So what sorts of things were we doing before we applied for Bee Campus? And what sorts of things have we continued to do once we received certification? So our work kind of takes two forms. So the first is pollinator habitat. We've created several gardens on campus, both exclusively native plants, either plants that we purchased from native nurseries or we grew ourselves from locally sourced seed. And we also monitored the insects that visited our garden. So we did a lot of work counting insects. And in this way, we gave undergraduates an opportunity to do research firsthand. We have some amazing artists on our team, and here's some diversity of photographs that they've taken. One of the things that really excites me about this is that we have many trophic levels, many different levels of healthy ecosystems inside the city, right? So we have bees, which are herbivores. We also have wasps, which are predators and carnivores. We have, in this case, we have a bee wolf that's actually hunted a sweat bee, or we have these digger wasps that hunt leaf-eating katydids. And so it's really amazing that in just a couple of short years, we've turned sort of what might look like desert to ecological desert to kind of a thriving landscape in a relatively small area, right? Our gardens only take up about 1,500 square feet. And I know other Bee Campuses are planting areas that are multiple hectares. And so it's possible on small scales to do pollinator conservation effectively. And I think our experience is a testament to that. Besides doing pollinator habitat restoration, we also do education in gardens. We've combined, we do experiential learning. So undergraduates have the opportunity to do research projects through us, through the Tufts Pollinator Initiative. We had two undergraduates this fall doing kind of socially distant projects in the garden, collecting insects and learning how to identify them. But we also offer, involve our activities in larger lecture-based courses. And we had an introductory botany course this fall go out and learn to identify plants using iNaturalist and other sort of online resources like that. And so we've been able to have an impact on over 100 undergrads this fall and several hundred last year. And it's these sorts of information and this sort of material was absent from Tufts biology courses before our work began. And so now it's great to see that undergraduates are leaving Tufts, even if they're not biology majors, they have some understanding of pollinators and pollinator conservation, which is more than I can ask for. We also have installed interpretive signs at our gardens, and we see, just standing by the gardens, I see lots of people observing them, and having these signs has really made our gardens that much more accessible to the community. We also educate people beyond the garden. So the surrounding Medford-Somerville community is, as I mentioned earlier, it's quite dense with people. And so we have outreach days with local schools. We post free informational flyers on insect identification and data-driven plant lists on our website. And you can find our information on these 2 QR codes. So you can sort of take a photo of this or hold your phone up to these and scan them for more information. If you just search Tufts Pollinator Initiative, we'll come up on the internet. If you're interested in seeing more about what we do, you can join us tonight for Pollinator Trivia. We actually are hosting a virtual free event via Zoom at 6 p.m. Eastern. You can register with this code here or find information on our website. It should be a lot of fun. We have lots of people already signed up, and this is sort of our way of doing outreach in a socially distant way. And I think it'll be a lot of fun, and it'd be great if you're interested and you'd like to join us. So basically, how does our Bee Campus sort of involvement work? How do we run our Bee Campus? So we have weekly meetings during the semester where we meet to discuss and plan upcoming events, plan blog posts, and we have about 10 members that are split up across undergrads all the way up to faculty, and all members of TPI are required to write at least 1 blog post during their time with us, and they can be on a topic of their choosing. So it's how we sort of engage with the public, but also make sure that everybody that's involved gets a chance to share their opinions and their voice. Our semester events are typically led by 1 or 2 people, so they pick the topic, we all agree on it, and then they're charged with spearheading the event. And then all of our members are responsible for garden maintenance and also conducting biodiversity surveys. This year, the surveys were led by an undergraduate. Her name is Maria. But throughout the summer, TPI, our gardens were surveyed by all of our members. And in this way, we're sort of just making sure that knowledge is passed on, right? So I'm a 4th-year graduate student. I'll probably be gone in a couple of years, but we have many first-year graduate students, ensuring that our activities will continue at the university for years to come. We run our committee meetings now virtually. We have two committee meetings a year. Most of our committee attends our weekly meetings, and our committee meetings are really to update the faculty that are too busy to attend our weekly meetings, as well as the grounds crew and the Office of Sustainability at Tufts. And it's great to have the support of our committee for our efforts. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of building strong relationships with your grounds facilities at your university. Building those relationships has been really important for securing new garden locations. And every year we're adding new places and new habitat on campus to protect pollinators. I'll also mention that we do a lot with the surrounding area, and because we don't have that much available land on campus, we also do a lot of work with surrounding organizations such as churches, but also sort of garden clubs to plant habitat on their land that's spearheaded by them, but we sort of are involved in a consulting way. And so our efforts are definitely far-reaching, and I think it's promising that pollinator conservation can occur successfully in a dense urban environment. I'm happy to take questions at the end, and thank you for your time.
Great, thank you so much, Nick. I learned a lot. It sounds like you have a lot of great things going on. So if you have any questions after that presentation, feel free to put those in the Q&A chat, and we'll get to those at the end. So next up, we have Patrick Bolin, and he's a professor of biology and the director of the Arboretum and Natural Resources program at the University of Central Florida.
Everyone, I'm delighted to be here to share our experience at the University of Central Florida as Bee Campus USA. Can everyone see the screen okay?
I'm seeing just you, Patrick.
Okay, let me see. I shared screen. That's not working. Something got changed in here. Let me try something.
Yeah, maybe if you try unsharing and resharing again.
Do that. Oh, hold on a second.
No worries.
Why isn't that working? No, that's not working. So, let's see.
Looks like it's working now. So we're seeing your desktop. There you go. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. Delighted to share this experience that we had at UCF becoming a Bee Campus USA. In fact, we were a very early member here in the state of Florida. We were the first. I think we might, I don't know if there are any other ones in Florida right now. I know there are other campuses that are expressing interest. And we actually started the process of becoming a Bee Campus USA even before the program was officially taken up by the Xerces Society. And of course, we were thrilled when it was. Pictured here is a Mexican sunflower. These grow about 10 to 15 feet tall and are not native, but as you can see, our native pollinators do really like these flowers, which just happen to be blooming right now, in fact. So I'm delighted to share with you sort of our experience and want to put in context, where we are. Somewhat like the Tufts example, we are a metropolitan campus. We do exist in an urban area. UCF, we're northwest of Orlando, but we are a large campus. We're one of the largest campuses in the country in terms of student body. I think we had 71,000 students enrolled this fall. And we do have a significant amount of land, about 1,400 acres. And you can see here on this aerial photograph our kind of circular based campus and all the green areas around there. We have about 800 acres of natural land in addition to the 600 acres of developed. So we do have quite a lot of space and land to deal with here on the campus. And I was in a very fortunate situation in starting this process in that at the time, my role here has changed a little bit, but as director of the Arboretum, I actually had a job in which I was also the director of landscape and natural resources. So I've really overseen the entire campus for about 10 years. And thus I actually had direct oversight of the grounds organization. There's only about two universities in the country that I'm aware of that were arranged like that, UC Davis and UCF. And so we had a direct line involving the grounds department, but I think it's very important what Nick pointed out, that you have to build that relationship if you don't have it. And we were just happy to be in a really good position with me kind of running the show. So I'm going to talk about how it started for us, how we got involved. I think it's important that you make the case. I think for most universities, this isn't a big deal, so people are going to get on board, but you do want to make the case. And if you're concerned about how you make that case to the university, I'll suggest some ways that you can do that. And then assembling the team is something that has been pointed out needs to be done. And we did some work on that up front. And then developing your program. And I think it's already been mentioned a couple of times, but there's an importance really, I think, of getting a little bit of a head start. And before we applied, we had some elements in place so that we had a little bit of momentum going into the application process. And that was important from two perspectives. One is, well, we had something to put in our application about what our program was going to be, but we also had already kind of built a little bit of enthusiasm and support for the general notion of supporting pollinator conservation and ecology. And then you really have to plan for sustained success. One of the reasons I liked Bee Campus and still do relative to other pollinator programs like the Million Pollinator Initiative and the Monarch Initiative from the Nature Conservancy and the Wildlife Society's program on certified pollinator habitat is that Bee Campus USA has an ongoing requirement And we already were a tree campus USA. And Phyllis Stiles, who established Bee Campus, actually kind of tailored or modeled her program after Tree City and Tree Campus programs, which require ongoing verified designation and commitment, which is a little different than just getting a designation and putting a sign up and saying we're such and such, and then that's all you have to do. I really think it's important that if you get some kind of certification like this, that you have an ongoing certification. Even the building, the leadership and energy and environmental design, when a building gets LEED certified, they walk away and they don't come back a year later and find out, are you still doing what you said you'd do? So I do like these programs that require an annual update. It keeps you very active, it keeps it very fresh, and you make sure that you're continuing to make those contributions. And that's why they make it easy to plan for sustained success, but you need to plan for that as well if you're going to apply. I actually was first introduced to the concept of Bee Campus and Bee City before it was part of Xerces by Phyllis Stiles, who's the founder, shown here. I had attended a couple meetings of the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, ASHE, which some of you may be familiar with, and she gave some presentations. And I think it was at the ASHE in San Antonio, where she indicated that she was trying to partner with an organization. She couldn't tell us who, but that she was partnering, and we were telling her we were working on getting her application together. And we were delighted to find out that the Xerces Society had taken that program over because of its eminence as an invertebrate conservation organization. So that was great. But so basically, we kind of started early because we met Phyllis before it was with Xerces, and she was just trying to get off the ground. So she was really a great volunteer founder of this whole thing. For making the case, I think the biggest issue right now for everybody is kind of the global issues. Most universities have some concern there, sustainability issues, and the loss of biodiversity is up there with climate change right now as a major global issue. So I think framing things in a context, a larger context, can really help. So we take advantage of that. I think everybody's pretty familiar with this evidence of in recent years of declines, not just in pollinators, but of insects and arthropods in general. So taking advantage of this concern over the loss of invertebrates and loss of habitat is key. There are international efforts focused on pollinators. Here's one from the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. You can find other things like this. Being aware of these things and putting them in the context of your pitch to either the administration or the other members of your campus community or your partners in the surrounding community is really important, because it puts your Bee Campus project in perspective of these major global issues, which I think is important. And everyone, a lot of people are more and more familiar with the pollinator crisis in general, and more specifically as an aspect of that. So that's important to emphasize as well. So that helps you kind of make the case when you're going to the higher administration. Of course, at UCF, we are one of the biggest universities in the country. As you might imagine, the president at the time had a lot on his plate, and the president still does, the new president. So getting their attention and selling it in a way that just makes it easy for them to grasp this is important. It fits with what we're trying to do with sustainability. It makes sense, and they get right on board. We did have to assemble the team. Again, that was a little bit easier for us than it will be for a lot of you, because I was director of landscape at the time. So right away, we had director of landscape, was the chair, had very strong involvement with facilities. If you don't have that, you need to build it, and building that relationship will be essential, especially with grounds organizations that might be a little less unaware of these kinds of issues, or are maybe a little bit more fixed in their ways and don't want to take on additional programs like this. For those kind of groups, I think it's really important to sell it to them in a way that makes it very palatable. If you pose your initial projects as some things that are kind of above the waterline, you know, we're not going to sink the whole campus by planting a couple of pollinator gardens to get started. And then that sensitive issue also of moving on pest control, which we still have issues on this campus. But, you know, when we started, we were using imidacloprid and neonicotinoid insecticides. We did use a lot of herbicide on this campus, so the chemical issue was important too for us to make sure that we could present it in a way that was palatable to the operations staff. We do have an arboretum, a campus arboretum, of which I am director, and we're in the process of designating our entire campus as the arboretum, so that makes it easy. But also the arboretum is kind of our education outreach component of this entire natural resource landscape system that we have. And so a couple of the staff over there are obviously very excited about getting involved in Bee Campus. We had other faculty here. You need to get faculty members. We had a couple of faculty that were choice members for us. Chase Mason showed here. He specializes in the evolution of plant physiology in the sunflowers. So he was already kind of doing plant-insect interactions. He's not an insect person, but he's a plant person who could fit in that way. And then here's Barb Sharanovsky, an entomologist. She actually runs our bug closet. We do have a bee bug collection on campus. And she actually got a national program going called Lawn to Wildflowers. At the same time we were becoming a bee campus, they've developed an app for identifying bees that people can use. You can look it up. It's called Lawn to Wildflowers. So she had just done that. So she had some pollinator initiatives going on. And here's her postdoc, Nash Turley, who's the postdoc on that project. So that was just kind of serendipitous that we had another faculty member. I do have a PhD in entomology too, although I don't really have a bee background. That was great. And then we have students involved, and our operational staff. Here's our head of, it's one of our superintendents who's head of chemical, and our director of landscape operations now is involved as well. Our students, we have a program called Learning by Leading, which we adopted from UC Davis for Campus Arboreta. And I actually have these two students are paid part-time, and they actually run the Bee Campus program on the ground. They manage interns who manage volunteers. So we actually have two students. We have students working in other areas like gardening, greenhouse, and natural resources, but these two students are actually Bee Campus USA co-coordinators who manage interns. So it's good to think about how you're going to include students and then how you're going to manage that through time if you're thinking about how you're going to run the project. We did do things ahead of time. We started some pollinator gardens the year before, or the year as we were applying. We already had some undergraduate research going on in bees, and I've now got 3 undergraduate students who are doing pollinator research on campus, various aspects of that, and taking on a doctoral student to do urban pollination ecology as well. But we already had some of that going with the student interest. We did have honeybee hives, and I do want to say that, emphasize that, honeybees, I like honeybees. And they're neat, but it's really not the focus of the program. Is not really honeybees. That's one species. I think we have something like 105 bee species on this campus that have been recorded. So, but the thing is, people really like honeybees. And the average person, that's what they think of very often, a bumblebee or a honeybee. So it has been a way to gain enthusiasm because people do get very excited about the honeybees. I always try to underemphasize them as we move forward because, yes, they are an important pollinator, but they are invasive. They're not native, so to speak. And but we do have honeybee hives, and try not to showcase that as a key part of our program. But you will find that people do get excited about them if you have them. And then we use those kind of existing projects and things that we had in place to put together the proposal, and then we could talk about what we were already doing and how we were going to solidify that when we put the application together. In terms of sustaining the program commitments, other than making sure that you have the people and personnel and committees lined up, I think that the program itself, because of the way it's structured, makes it pretty easy, provided that you're willing to try to hit these targets every year. You do have to have a campus habitat plan. We haven't developed ours yet this year. We're having one of our students develop an outline that, every year make a little bit of progress towards the next goal. We do host events and workshops. We do a lot of social media, so we try to track and count any kind of social media posts. I try to do a bunch of social media posts on pollinators. We try to capture it that way. And then we do host workshops and events. And in the COVID time, we're actually planning to do a little bit more remote kinds of activities, maybe through Zoom and that sort of thing. We held one on Tuesday. One of our students held a Zoom meeting about a Zoom workshop, essentially, on pollinators. Service learning is something I think we haven't done a lot of yet, but with all the pieces we now have in place, We see that having student interns or other students coming on board can now easily plug in service learning projects where they get the message out and take what we've learned and what we know and develop more service learning oriented type projects. I do teach a honeybee class and we have an entomology class, but we want to develop more kind of workshop and curriculum based, whether informal or formal curriculum on pollinators. They are covered in a couple of classes. I spend time in my honeybee class talking about about pollinators in general, and they do the same in entomology. Educating campus and broader community, we're involved with a lot of other groups. We were part of the Monarch Initiative with TNC, the Million Pollinator Garden Initiative. But the nice thing about I said about the bee campus is it's really a well-sustained program. It requires these annual activities, and there's really give it, I think, a lot of strength and heft relative to some of these other programs. And then we annually apply for renewal every year. We've got to get the renewal in. I have staff that help with that. They try to track all these things that I talked about in terms of the number of events, the social media posts, and everything we said we were going to do, so that we have a good way of assembling that information at the end of the year when we submit our annual renewal. So again, everybody has their unique experience. That was ours here at UCF, and I hope that helps you, and I'd be glad to take any questions at the end of the program.
Great. Thank you so much, Patrick. That was a really great overview of all of the work you've done. I especially liked hearing about how you've adapted to COVID and having events online. I know people have had a lot of questions about that. So next up, we have Gary Cockey and Sophia Bover. Gary is the Sustainability Director at the University of Texas at Dallas. And Sophia is an eco rep with the University of Texas at Dallas's Office of Sustainability. So I'll hand it over to them.
Thank you for having me. Sophia, if you could please go to the next slide. So first, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Gary Cockey. I'm the Director of Sustainability here at UTD. So I lead our efforts to integrate sustainability in operations, academics, student engagement, public engagement, and policy and administration. And Sophia, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sophia. I'm a student worker in the Office of Sustainability. I'm in charge of our Bee Campus USA activities. I handle outreach, committee meetings, things like that.
And would you mind advancing to the next slide? So I'm really just going to set the stage for Sophia. Sophia is the co-chair of our Bee Campus USA committee, and she leads a lot of the work, but I'd like to speak a little bit to how we became a Bee Campus USA here at UTD. So I went to the ASHE conference in 2015, and I saw a presentation, and it really grabbed my attention because I recognized that with a lot of our sustainability work, we're trying to work and affect operations, academics, engagement, and administration. And I recognized that Bee Campus USA was a great tool to break those silos and bring together the different groups that we need to collaborate to drive change with regards to our pollinator education and habitat protection. And so I came back, I was wearing a different hat at the ASHE 2015 conference. I was with another university in Texas, and we engaged some student leaders. And at that university, we became the first Bee Campus USA in Texas. And then whenever I switched hats and joined UT Dallas, I had seen the value that it provided at my previous university, and I immediately engaged some student leaders and pursued Bee Campus USA certification here at UTD. And I've also advised a couple other universities along the way too to speak to the value that it provides. I'd like to emphasize that the value is really, I think, profound. There is so much student learning that can be had throughout this process. I've led as an Office of Sustainability that was housed in Student Affairs. And so with Bee Campus USA, we were able to make those connections with faculty, make those connections with grounds. And then I've led as an Office of Sustainability that was more oriented towards operations. And we were able to directly influence the habitat, but this was a great tool for getting students involved in what we were doing with our pollinator habitats on campus. Like some of the other presenters said, we were already doing some of the work that is highlighted in the B Campus USA commitments, but the framework that B Campus USA provides gave us the ability to scale that a bit more and be a bit more effective with that work. At both of the universities that I was working at, we had Tree Campus USA certifications already. And so the path there was already kind of demonstrated for the universities, and it was easy to make the case. With regards to student leadership, I'd like to really highlight the fact that I see this as such a value add for students, and it's that is a great tool for consensus building too. So when you speak to your leadership at the university, regardless of their preconceptions with regards to pollinator habitats, everybody is there to provide education to students. And I found that students really value pollinator protection. And there's learning opportunities. I've had students lead in our application process. Sophia co-chairs our B Campus USA committee, and I believe is learning a lot through that experience. Students provide service learning, they attend the events, and it's just really a great tool for connecting everybody, connecting it to the learning that's happening in the classroom, and drives change throughout the campus. So with a lot of these things that I've seen, we need to build culture. And when you build culture, that can be done through student engagement. And when you have that culture, then you can really be ambitious with what you're doing with pollinator habitat and your operational decisions. So for all of those reasons, it's provided tremendous value here at UT Dallas. And Sophia, if you wanted to advance the slide, I'll hand the floor to you.
Thank you, Gary. So I really view the application process in 3 phases. There's the learning phase, the application phase, and the implementation phase. When I first came into the position with B Campus USA, understanding the commitments was so important to understanding why it was so valuable to our campus. One thing I want to emphasize is to resist the feeling to have it all figured out ahead of time. Making plans is important, but seeing where you can go from where you are is also important. And you should really use the commitments to drive change. Some of the values that I have seen on the that B Campus USA has provided for us is a way to engage students with grounds. Grounds is such a underappreciated part of the university, and having B Campus USA has allowed a lot of students, I think, to be able to see the work that grounds does. We're located within facilities management, and that has been so helpful because facilities management can really garner student engagement and enthusiasm, and they can also see pollinator habitats as a lower maintenance form of habitat, which is an overall benefit. When I was doing this, one thing that was very important to me was understanding who was a stakeholder in the application and who I could reach out to with experience. People on grounds were fantastic. People in the faculty that were studying pollinators, that worked with the pollinators on campus, were so helpful just with the amount of expertise and engagement that they had. Then looking at the application phase, data collection is huge for our campus. Using metric-based and data-driven goals is very important to see where we want to go in the future. Making meaningful plans through the commitments is one of, I think, the greatest strengths that our committee focuses on. Being able to make plans and execute them to drive change is so important to seeing the long-term goals and the long-term commitments be realized. And one thing I really want to emphasize is that our committee and our B Campus USA is so collaborative. We work with grounds, we work with faculty, and we work with students in order to make sure that everybody's input is heard, everybody's expertise is used in a meaningful way. Looking at the implementation, grounds has always been so helpful. We have so many people that are very keen on B Campus USA, and their support and expertise is invaluable in our application. I'm going to go into more detail about our committee and how we implement that, but having a collaborative committee is so important. And then service learning is another thing that we focus on implementing. Being able to have our campus serve as a living laboratory for students to get engaged in pollinator protection is so important, because it really engages people with the education resources in a way that kind of just lecturing at them doesn't necessarily do. On our campus, we have student champions, and I'm very grateful to be one of them. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to learn about pollinator protection. And so service learning is so important about what we do on our campus. So looking at the specific way that we structure our committee, we have students, faculty, and staff, of course, and that's written into the commitments, but making sure that you hear everybody's expertise and where they think that it could go is so important to deciding what change you want to see on your campus. We use the expertise from them, but, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to change slides there. We were very intentional in selecting our committee participants. We selected people from the Office of Student Volunteerism, the Office of Sustainability, of course, grounds, students, faculty that were already engaged. Identifying current leaders on your campus and people that are already involved is very important to putting together a really interactive and engaged committee. Once again, our committee is student-led and focuses on student learning. We try to provide everyone the opportunity to get involved wherever they can. The way that we structure our committee meetings is we focus on 3 different areas of kind of our B Campus USA history and what we're looking to do. We start out the meetings by looking at what we have done in the past, just to give us some perspective on what's going on now. Then we look at the goals that we have set and what we're going to do, what we want to do currently. And then we set plans. And so in this meetings, we do it twice a year, once a semester, to set out kind of the overarching goals of what we want to implement in the coming semester, coming year. And it's so important that the committee is engaged and enthusiastic, because that's where we really draw all of our guidance from and oversight from and expertise from. So as I had mentioned, we really focus on having data-driven and metric-based goals. Being able to identify what you want to do and be able to meet that goal in a systematic manner is really effective for driving change. Education is another area that we want to track. We have a few pollinator courses on campus. We have two courses related to honeybees and honeybee biology. And then we have another course which is taught by Gary that focuses on sustainability as a whole. So education is very important to our B Campus USA progress as well. And we draw from those courses and the students that are taking those courses as well as a source to educate and involve students in pollinator protection. And again, service learning is so important. We do a lot of work with iNaturalist. We have regular BioBlitzes on campus. And one of the events that we held this semester was a virtual BioBlitz where students could go out and take pictures of the native species in their area individually. So it wasn't in a group, but we just encouraged students to do that over COVID. And that's how we're kind of adapting our service learning to a virtual environment. So in summation, I really want to emphasize that when you're going into the process, you should focus on understanding the commitments. They're so important to driving change, knowing what you can focus on and what areas you can really improve your campus in. Again, engaging students, faculty, and staff in a meaningful way is, I think, one of the most valuable experiences I've had with B Campus USA. And then we have a student champion, and I'm so grateful to have that position and get involved in this way. And then metric-based tracking is also important for our goal setting and plan-based change. Thank you so much. Here's our contact information if you want to reach out to any of us, and we'll be open to questions as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sophia and Gary. That was great to learn more about what you're doing. So our final presenter is Brent Adrian. Brent is a public speaking instructor and the co-chair of the Faculty Environmental Sustainability Across the Curriculum Committee at Central Community College.
Thank you for the introduction, Molly. I'm I'm going to share my screen here. And looks like it's hiding right behind the others. There we go. What I want to talk about today, in addition to a little bit of our history lesson for what took place here at Central, that the key ideas that we want to follow is how to discover assets related to B Campus USA needs, how to identify potential partners, identify potential stakeholders, find funding. You really need money for some of this, to build interest and desire, and then identify potential participants and provide incentives. And I think all of this is something that the previous speakers have covered. Here, Central Community College is in Nebraska. And as you saw in the material that Molly shared earlier, we are the lone dot right there in the middle of Nebraska. We're the only B campus in the state. There is no B city, although we hope to change that in the communities where we have campuses. We were the second community college in the country to come in as a B campus, and then we were 29th in the country overall. Our campus covers our college covers 25 counties in Nebraska. It's a huge region, and in addition to our 3 primary campuses, we have 3 learning centers and a super center. Essentially, what you see across the screen here is Interstate 80 that goes across the state, and we have most of our campuses and learning centers right along I-80. And then in addition, these lines that you can see are the places that all of the students have come from our beekeeping class, which was the start of our beekeeping, or our B Campus USA experience. Why people come from Iowa and Kansas to attend beekeeping classes in Grand Island, Nebraska is beyond me, but they really honestly do. We've really built a strong program. This started in 2014 and into 2015 with the beekeeping class. Here you can see my oldest son, who is now a student at our institution and is particularly active in sustainability efforts here. And then what really started the beginning of our committee for that would become B Campus USA several years later is what we call the B team. And the B team had to change the laws in Grand Island, Nebraska, because we discovered about 6 months into our beekeeping class that beekeeping was illegal in the city that we were teaching it in, as well as the state fair activities that we have here in Grand Island, Nebraska. So we all came together to change the laws in the city. This is me and my middle boy that is in that picture. And this really gave us a lot of traction working with the faculty. We had English students that were writing letters to the editor. We had public speaking students that were giving speeches, and this student here was in the public speaking course and presented in favor of bees, and ultimately we got those laws changed. And this really gave us a lot of traction and a lot of exposure for what we would do in the future. And I want to recognize, the earlier comments about you don't want to get stuck on honeybees for B Campus USA at all. In fact, we discovered very early on that bees are not for everyone. So finding a pollinator that people like and developing around those areas of expertise is particularly important. What really moved us, as apparently has happened to several other of the commentators, to B Campus USA is attending one of the sessions at ASHE. And I attended the session in Minneapolis that I believe was delivered by a couple participants in the program at Southern Oregon University. And I came back to Grand Island in my capacity as the co-chair of the environmental sustainability across the curriculum committee and began presenting our opportunities for this. And we started to tap into what sort of resources that we had available and such. And so what we started with were pollinator gardens. And some of these started on our other campuses that wouldn't enter the program for a couple of years. And right at the top of my list is, of course, facilities. The grounds people one's got to work with extremely well. And they are different on all of our campuses. And so we have different types of relationships. We discovered that our community ed, or what we call extended learning department and staff, have been particularly important, bringing in people from the community that will take gardening courses or perhaps the beekeeping course, or that will attend our pollinator gardens and Earth Week festivities. We also work very closely with the Nebraska statewide Arboretum, and they have provided large amounts of funding and personnel and expertise for us to plant and maintain the pollinator gardens that we have now across the state of Nebraska on our campuses and learning centers. The area that really drives this currently is the Environmental Sustainability Office. This was created about 8 years ago at our college in order to implement sustainability in every area of the college, and B campuses just fit right into that particularly well. We also haven't been able to do this without a relationship with our marketing department and PR department. These are the people that take many of the photographs that we have, that send out the press releases, and make sure that everyone in our 25 county service area is aware of the work that Central does. And then, of course, the committee that we have, we're trying to push this into the classroom through the environmental sustainability across the curriculum committee that I'm a part of, has really driven many of the incentives that we have for students to get involved. And this is an example of one of our pollinator gardens, and it's the one that is on my campus here in Grand Island, Nebraska, and it is populated with a number of native plants. We have not on this campus been able to do a survey or even a census of the types of pollinators that we have, but it has taken place on our Columbus campus in conjunction with the University of Nebraska at Lincoln and the science classes that we have on the Columbus campus. So one of the big selling points we've had then is to bring our faculty in and include it as part of the curriculum. So we see this in our biology courses. We have one instructor that works with milkweed, and then because of our Monarch Watch program, he's been able to connect those together, and he brings students out into the pollinator garden a couple of times a semester, at least in season, and does that sort of learning experience for the students. We started then as a B campus in 2017 on just one campus here in Grand Island, and expanded to the entire college in 2018. And we took people such as myself and the sustainability director from that original B team, combined it then with the grants people that helped us with the pollinator gardens on the other campuses and on our Grand Island campus, brought in an entomologist from one of our learning centers, which is really key because she's got a lot of experience. We brought in a college campus president, and we have added grounds personnel from each campus. They take up a fair number of the seats in the room when we are having our committee meetings. So we moved from just a campus then to several counties across Nebraska. One of the things that has really helped us build interest has been the pollinator festivals that we have held every year. And that has connected to many of our service learning events that we bring students into. The key ones include Earth Month, the Pollinator Festival, some of our growing gardens class. We have a partnership with the Nebraska State Fair where we have a sustainability pavilion, and then we have planting and harvesting opportunities and market watch. All of this then we're able to bring together to build interest across the college with faculty, staff, students, and people in the community. This is a series of some of the state fair opportunities we had. This young lady here, Kazia, delivered on native bees, and so she created an area for bumblebees in here, a small habitat that we later moved out to an organic farm. And that was a very strong opportunity for people to see. It was kind of fun when they escaped. You've managed to get out. We did, of course, find that Bee Campus isn't for everyone, so we do a monarch watch and tagging program here that we find also gets a lot of outreach opportunities, and we use it as part of our Pollinator Festival, where we take the monarchs that we have available at the time and tag them and release them, and the children just think it is positively wonderful. We have built more into this with Earth Week, which is now Earth Month, and we celebrate a week on each of our campuses, and it is very different on all of our campuses with a variety of different events. And so in Grand Island, we may have honeybee keeping, but in places like Kearney, it will be more focused on pollinator gardens and native pollinators and such. And in Columbus, it's frequently agriculturally oriented. They have a greenhouse there. And then in Hastings, they have a culinary program that also feeds into much of what is talked about. The external partnerships that we have really driven a lot of this. We get funding from the Nebraska State Fair that feeds our student projects. We have opportunities with our local health departments and with the Nebraska statewide Arboretum, as we talked about earlier. And all of these people provide us with lots of personnel and opportunities for our students as interns and such. We have a large number of people, students that have gotten job offers from these partners. And so we're able to sell a lot of our programs to higher administration based upon the success of our graduates. We incorporate some of this in student activities, such as these bee dippers that are created by students in our advanced manufacturing program, and we get to hand those out as swag to people. So as we talked about the rewards and incentives, and I finished this conversation up, we have developed a digital badge for our students that goes along with a co-curricular transcript. We've built this into 4 badges, and then they get not only the digital badge, but they get a notation on a co-curricular transcript that looks at the extra things that students do. The students that serve as interns and belong to our various clubs that involve students get a notation as an officer on that co-curricular transcript as well. And it has driven quite a few opportunities for our students. And of course, the community involvement badge is essentially our service learning e-badge. We just don't call it service learning because service learning means kind of something else for the college. And so we call it the community involvement e-badge. Some of the things then that we have been able to do is greatly grow our student interest. We are very happy that on the Columbus campus, the Pollinator Garden now is the centerpiece for the $5 million new building that is going in at that particular campus. So I think that I've kind of shared a lot that our other people have shared. I talked a little bit about how you can interest students and other stakeholders and find funding and be successful with Bee Campus USA. And I will stick around for questions afterward as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Brent. So it looks like we are about 2 minutes over. So if any presenters or participants or our captioner needs to leave, that's completely fine. But if people do have questions and want to stick around, we can stay on for a few more minutes and answer anything. So if you have any questions, feel free to stick those in the chat. Looks like there's quite a bit of enthusiasm for, someone said, great pictures. A lot of thank you for sharing. Seattle University has been pesticide free, someone wrote, and put in their contact information if anyone wants to get in touch with them. Looks like somebody said, great presentations. I have a question. So we'll see if they type in their question. Someone else says, impressive programs by all presenters. Great work. I agree. Somebody's saying they have to go to another meeting, but great suggestions. So I'll give it another few seconds to see if anyone puts in a question, but it seems like everyone really enjoyed this. Oh, okay. There's one question. We'll do this question, then everybody can go their separate ways. So it says, can you describe your IPM plans, so your integrated pest management plans, how costs changed with respect to materials and labor, or landscape managers' reactions to implementing these plans? That is a good question. So does anyone want to jump in on that?
I guess I'll just quickly jump in to say we do have an IPM plan, and we had one. Now what we found is that we really kind of need to update it because it's getting a little outdated, and it hasn't been updated since we became a Bee Campus USA. So we need to do that. And it has changed our materials a little bit insofar as our managers actually buying and using more organic type pest control than they would have previously. I think we have a ways to go, but we do have an existing IPM plan, and I think in fact that was a requirement of the program, but maybe you can speak to that, Molly.
Yeah, so it is a requirement that affiliates create an integrated pest management plan within the first few years of certification. Yeah, so a lot of people start working on that, and we provide some resources. We're going to start having some webinars and a little more hands-on opportunities for people to learn more about integrated pest management and think through how to create those plans.
At UT Dallas, we also have an integrated pest management plan, and it calls for the least toxic available option, and it provides the steps exactly how we can choose the right way to treat the pests. And we have we're right next to our extension office, and the extension office that is next to us has a specialist that focuses on integrated pest management education. And so we modeled a lot of what we do off of the guidance provided by our extension office. And then we also rely on our honeybee biologist, who's a faculty member that drives a lot of what we do with Bee Campus USA. He gets frequent calls whenever we have bees that have set up shop in the wall or in a tree that is in a high traffic area, and he will go and personally remove those, capture those. We also have capture hives in strategic areas, so that hopefully the bees will swarm to a capture hive rather than taking up residence in a place that could be more troublesome on campus.
On a small campus like Tufts, our goal with the IPM was to basically prioritize areas first where we're planting habitat. And we got commitment from our grounds to basically stop all pesticide applications, even organic ones, in our beds or near them. And then the conversation kind of progressed to how can we shape the rest of campus to make sure that we maintain a balance between aesthetics, because our campus really likes their aesthetics. So we want to shape the kind of maintain that balance between it has to look nice because it's such a small area and make sure that there's habitat. And oftentimes those are competing goals because insects sort of like habitat that's not so manicured. And we're still working on our IPM. We just became a bee campus last year, and so we're still working on putting the final touches on it. But in general, we have a pretty good commitment to stick to organic controls throughout campus, if they're required, and none in our habitat, which was a priority for us.
Great. It looks like there's another question. Can pollinator gardens be located close to a building? And Nick, it says you're going to answer this question live. I didn't know that was
I just saw that. I said, okay, sure, I'll answer it live. Absolutely. Both of our gardens are built very close to buildings. The most important thing for us was that there's, more than seven-ish hours of sun a day, so that the plants, the plants that we could grow were sun loving. Shade tolerant plants are also really suitable for pollinators, but there's fewer options, I think. And one thing that was really important for us was that we don't have a lot of space, so shrubs and trees are really not a part of our gardens, even though many times they're really good for insects. And a lot of the more shade tolerant plants might be shrubs or trees. And so those are things to consider when designing your gardens.
One thing I would say about that is that's kind of one thing we try to pick up with our habitat plan. A real good pollinator garden isn't always going to look tidy if it's fulfilling the requirements of a pollinator garden. But you can achieve a lot with basic landscape materials, some native, some not, where it's more acceptable in a standard landscape, but also is good habitat. And we're actually trying to develop our habitat plan so that we can try to get the landscape architects and the people designing to try to incorporate some of that material. And we might even try to make it some of our part of our campus standards, where every new landscape has to at least check a box. Did we consider, the pollinator benefits of the plant material that we're selecting? Because there's a lot of areas that aren't pollinator gardens per se that still provide a lot of pollinator habitat.
Yeah, I actually wanted to get the panelists' opinion on this. Like, that's something that we struggle with. Like, our facilities mandates that we make our gardens tidy by December 1st, and even then in spring they come through with a leaf blower and they insist on the one that's most visible cleaning up. And this is not great for the insects that are overwintering in our beds. We're trying to create both flower habitat but also nesting habitat. And so I was wondering if you had any techniques or experience with kind of working to maintain that balance between aesthetics and high quality habitat.
Well, here in Grand Island and Hastings and Columbus, we have student interns that very specifically work on that material. And facilities is kind of thrilled because they don't have to maintain any of our pollinator space. So it's kept tidy within limits. We're still working on how to learn how to do this. And in terms of being close to buildings, we even have some of the local high schools that bring students here, and they use our pollinator garden benches and tables as a bus stop. So we have a lot of use for that, and there's not any fear about being stung or what have you.
And I'll underscore too, I think Bee Campus USA is a great way to make progress there. I spoke a little bit about just building the culture for these types of habitats as being an asset for your campus. I know for our facilities management group, the fact that students are enthusiastic about these types of habitats matters. And with like the no-mow zone wildflower areas, the labor savings is something that they get really happy about as well. I know for our campus, we are establishing like a 3-acre wildflower area that is meant to be an entry point to campus that establishes us as a Texas prairie campus. So it's intentional about the aesthetic of our campus. We have another 8-acre area that is at another entry point of campus with these no-mow zones kind of integrated throughout. And then when we've been able to put our apiary, it's right next to our administration building. And I made the point that this is something that our students value, and it should be a point of pride for us as a university. So having student leaders and having the service learning and having like the PR and marketing value that Bee Campus brings can help be the leading foot for that culture change to make more progress with landscape decisions and operational decisions.
To add to that a little bit, I think one aspect that really helps to kind of mitigate the kind of unruly look of pollinator gardens is good signage. Making sure that when people walk by a pollinator garden, they go, okay, that has a purpose. It's not just being left unmaintained for a reason. They're doing something good for pollinators on campus. That's really, I think, a very important way to indicate that this is an intentional decision and a good thing. And it's a good image to have those signs up in those areas.
Yeah, people call them cues of care, and I love that term. You call them cues of care, and just to show people that this garden is cared for, and this is not just sort of unruly and unkempt.
The other thing I want to point out about the signs, we talked a lot about the entomologists and the biology professors, and we're also trying to engage the art community a little bit. The artists can help you design the signs. Our student government actually wanted to do a campus mural, but they had to get through the University Master Planning Committee. There was a big deal about it. And the students wanted to do, without any prompting from us, wanted to do a bee-themed mural because we're a Bee Campus USA. So you can also take advantage of the arts and try to get the student art departments involved in helping you create signage, or maybe take some other initiatives that help support the program around your campus.
Gary, I think you're muted if you're trying to talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. A similar note, if you have an apiary and can harvest honey, send some to your executive leadership and let them know that you are a Bee Campus USA. We do that. Our vice president loves to mention that in his speeches now. And we sell the honey to our community, and the revenues help support student leaders and pollinator initiatives as well. So it's a value add, and that branding and culture building is really something that I think Bee Campus USA can really help with.
We have done the same sort of thing like that here at Central, and we not only make sure that the honey is widely available for sale, we use it to fund summer programs for youth in our community ed department. It's quite effective. And we put it in our food pantry so that it can be given to needy families and students that maybe be experiencing food insecurity.
That's great. And that's such a good example of how honeybees can really be used to draw people into pollinator conservation in general, because honey is such a appealing thing and honeybees are so fun to watch. And yeah, it's a great way to incorporate people into the whole world of pollinator conservation, get them excited about bees. So with that, I think we've gone about 15 minutes over, so I think we'll end it there. If anyone has questions that weren't answered, feel free to email me. My email's molly.martin@xerces.org, or you can just find our contact information on the Bee City website, and I can connect you with any of the panelists if you have outstanding questions. So with that, thank you so much to everybody who joined us and who presented, and to our captioner today. This was really great to learn more about what everyone's doing and connect with you all. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks.